Um, Wait, give me one second. I'm starting on Instagram. All right, cool. So we are now live on Instagram and YouTube. Welcome, everybody. Um,
Yep.
so we have a very exciting topic today. We're going to be talking about how to create high quality leads, or how to basically change your ad account settings to where you can target the kind of leads that you're looking for on Instagram. And I think one of the best ways to kind of show that would be just sharing my screen here on Ads Manager and kind of walking you through our thinking of the settings and what kind of buttons to click on here. So I'm going to share my screen and share the Ads Manager tab, and let me know once you can see the screen there. We do.
Yeah. Everything is good to go. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So it's a little bit zoomed out, but I will zoom in um, here on the audience section right here. Okay. Let me know if does it zoom in on your end?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right,
Way
cool,
more
cool, cool.
visible. Yep.
Love it. Okay, so here we are in Ads Manager. I'm going to go to the audience section. And the first way that I want to talk about when it comes to improving your lead quality is simply exclusions. Exclusions, right? So when you create an ad in Facebook, you can do two things. You can include people in the targeting, or you can exclude them. One of the easiest ways to include or to increase the lead quality is just by excluding like areas or zip codes that just would not be a good fit for ceramic coatings. And one of the best ways to do this would be through median household income. Um, I mean, the premise there is pretty simple, right? If you're showing your ads in a very broad radius like this, let me click on this. So you can see here in Spokane, Washington, where I'm currently based out of, um, by default, Facebook adds in a radius, a 25-mile radius from where you want to target. And the cool thing about this is that like it makes it easy for you to just add in, pins where you want to show this ad. The downsides are that we're blanketing a big area. And
Yep.
within that area, we have the good and the bad. So one way to increase the quality of your ceramic coating leads is just by excluding all the bad areas. And by bad, I mean areas where it's kind of obvious that they're not going to be able to um, qualify financially for a ceramic coating. And the best way to kind of find this information is just by Googling it. The cool thing about zip codes or median household incomes is that a lot of that is publicly available data through the US Census Bureau. And what you would essentially do is you would go ahead and go into Ads Manager. You would go ahead and add in the zip code exclusions, and then it would go ahead and like not show the ads to those specific areas. So that's kind of what I've done here in this Ads Manager setup. So you can see here Spokane, it does a 25-mile radius by default, but I'm also excluding this area, Coeur d'Alene, just a city. I could also do a radius around that. So this is what it looks like. So you can see here there's some overlap. So we want to make sure there's as little overlap as possible. So I'm going to decrease the radius of both areas. That way there's not a whole lot of overlap, or we're minimizing that overlap as much as possible. And cool, cool, cool. Um, so yeah, this is probably like one of the best ways to include certain areas or to exclude certain areas. Because if you look here at this map, Washington State is right next to Idaho, right? So a lot of people from Idaho, which is probably like a 20-minute drive over here, will come to Spokane and vice versa, right? The borders are really close to each other. And we don't want to get ceramic coating leads that live out of state or live too far away to where it just doesn't make sense for them to drive all the way over here to get their car coated. I imagine that a good portion of people would be open to doing that, but I would assume by default, a lot of people would not, right? Um, we're zoomed in on your face. Give me one second. Okay. Sorry. We got one of our good friends, the Rolling Diamond, said, "What about now? We're zoomed in on your face." On my preview, I think we're good. I just want to make sure it's not blown up in the Instagram stream here.
Looks good on Instagram.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. It might have just been that preview. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, like I was saying, one of the best ways to increase the quality of your ceramic coating leads is by excluding areas that you don't want the ads to be shown in. And to kind of further illustrate this, we can do this within this radius. So let's just say I'm a detailer, I live in Spokane, I service a 20-mile radius, and anything like, again, with this radius, we're blanketing the good and the bad. But let's say there's a specific zip code like 99202. I typed in that zip code and it pops up here in Ads Manager. So I go in there. And the cool thing about this is that it kind of narrows down where my Spokane ad is being shown. But if I want to add in other zip codes like 99201, we can add that and you can do a series of zip codes. So you can get more and more specific with the areas that you're targeting. So I don't know if these areas are high income or low income, but in your scenario, you would type in the zip codes that are like, you'll know what kind of zip codes are typically more higher income, right? More financially qualified to, I guess, afford ceramic coatings, afford higher ticket services, right? They have more disposable income. And again, a lot of this data is publicly available through the US Census Bureau. So it's not like we're doing anything like outside of bounds. A lot of this information, again, is public. So
Yep.
I would use it to your advantage when you're advertising because, again, like you saw, by default, it blankets everything, right? So you get the good and the bad. So, Radu, can you walk me through like some scenarios where this could really make a big difference in a campaign?
Yep. Yeah. So a big difference it would make in those cases in which the location is so big, maybe a big city, and
Yep.
it all comes down to not spending that ad spend unwisely. So you
Yes.
don't want to waste ad spend. So for that reason, if the audience is big enough, you can then know exactly, uh, basically the geographical relevance. You'll know probably those specific parts of the cities where maybe most people would not be able to maybe afford the service. So you can first of all exclude those, and then you can focus on including those zip codes that have a higher income. So even if you'd have that blue circle, the radius, you can
Yeah.
maybe start including some higher income zip codes that are slightly out of that zone, but just by a bit, instead of adding another 10 miles to that radius. So yeah, in those cases where you have a big audience, it definitely helps. If the audience is not that big, let's say 200,000, maybe 300,000, maybe it's not wise to exclude like 50,000 people or 80,000 people. You want
Yeah.
to get as many jobs as possible. Yeah.
Yes. 1000%. And like, just to illustrate this in kind of a different way, let's say that I want to drop in a radius in Spokane still, but there's an area in Spokane called the Spokane Valley. And just for this example, let's say that that area tends to be lower income. So you see here that we have our main Spokane radius, which is 25 miles by default. You can shorten this. I would really like the radius or the size of this, I would narrow to be like areas that you service, right? So
Yep.
if it's outside of that service area, you're going to get leads that are like, "Hey, man, you're just too far away. I'm not going to drive." You know, even if it is a good price, like it
Yep.
might just be too far away for that customer. But let's say Spokane Valley here is lower income. I'm going to go to include and change to exclude and just type it in again, Spokane Valley. And now I can exclude that area even with that radius. So it's going to look at the Spokane Valley proper and it's going to exclude those people from my advertising. So even though it's within the radius, it's still going to exclude them. And one of the biggest reasons why I think this is actually super useful is because you want to give Facebook parameters to stay within when it comes to your ads. Because if you do just a broad radius, right, there's bad zip codes, there's lower income areas within that radius. So Facebook will see that, like, if you're getting a lot of leads from that low income area, it's going to see, oh, this audience really gravitates towards ceramic coatings,
Yep.
but fundamentally it's a low income area or it's low quality, right? So if we tell Facebook don't even target those people, now it's kind of having to find other ways to optimize and get the best use of your dollars. Because
Yep.
again, if you tell Facebook to just target everybody within this radius, it will, and it'll find certain areas where people, like, they're interested in getting their car coated, but they can't afford it financially, or they don't have the disposable income, or the percentage of people there who have the disposable income is fairly low. Then, like, yes, you're getting a lot of leads, but they're low quality leads.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's another great way to increase the quality of those leads here.
Yep. Plus,
Um,
one quick
Go ahead.
example would be in case maybe you want to target this radius that, let's talk about New York City. So taking someone
Yes.
outside of New York City or getting someone in New York City because of the congestion and everything else, that might be a good example in which it might be a high income zip code close to you, but if there's that disconnect, it's in New York City, it needs to travel, it takes maybe 1 hour just to get out of the city, then
Yes.
it comes down to the geographical relevance. So you know exactly
Yes.
each of these things. Yeah.
Okay, so Spokane's on the west side of the United States. Now let's do the opposite in New York on the other side, on the East Coast. So, like you mentioned, Radu, this is actually a great example of that. Because New York, right, like even a 1 mile radius, you're
The same.
going within different boroughs, right? It's densely populated. So what would we do in that case? Like, let's say, and we've actually had this happen before. So let's say New Jersey, for example. Like New Jersey, you definitely want to have a separation. You want to have separation between New Jersey and New York, right? Because a lot of people who live in New York will stay within New York and rarely drive or make the trip over to New Jersey, or at least
Yep.
the east part of New Jersey. So let's just take Edison as an example. Edison, New Jersey. Okay, so you see how there's a lot of overlap. The radiuses are big. So within New York, obviously we would specify the borough or the specific part of New York that we would want to stay in. But just for this example, let's say we have a client in New Jersey, Edison, New Jersey. We want to lower the radius as much as possible. Okay, nice. So now we are staying within New Jersey, and now we can kind of get and make sure that we're not targeting New York. So I would actually remove New York and exclude them from seeing the ads. That way we can say definitively nobody from New York will get our ceramic coating ads because they're just too far away, and Facebook won't optimize and use that budget efficiently. So this is
Yep.
why exclusions really make a big difference with the way you're targeting. Is you want to be able to exclude certain areas that are either too far away, too different, or just not financially qualified to spend on a ceramic coating.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the second way that we can go ahead and increase the quality of ceramic coating leads, which is with lookalike audiences. So Radu,
Yeah.
can you explain what a lookalike audience is?
Yeah. So an easy way to understand it, imagine you have this dinner party and you have maybe 10 guests over. Same interests, same tastes, same vibes, everything's nice and going on, nicely going on. If you want to multiply this list of your guests maybe to 100, 1000, imagine having all of those same the exact share the exact interests, tastes, vibes and everything else.
Yeah,
So that's
right.
basically a good way to think about it. After we
Yes.
run ads, we know basically we have an audience, and we'll then
Yeah.
ask Facebook, hey, can you give me another audience that is very similar to this one? This would be the main idea. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's a really good analogy, right?
Yep.
So let's make this even more personal, right? Let's say you have 10 really good friends, right? You have a friend circle of 10 people. You can kind of tell their interest. You can kind of tell that you guys all kind of share some sort of commonality, right? Now, instead of that being just your set of 10 friends, think of that as your customer list, right? People who have already given you money, whether it was for a detail, a wash and wax, or any service like a ceramic coating, they've given you money. Now, using a lookalike list with Facebook targeting, we could tell Facebook, go out there within the area that we're targeting and look for people with similar characteristics to the people who have already paid me money. That's essentially what a lookalike list is. And the cool thing about lookalike lists is that you can plug in that lookalike list in your targeting. And what Facebook will do using this algorithm, it'll look for people who have shared interest, who are maybe liking the same pages or have watched similar things to your customer list. And now, over a longer period of time, Facebook will be able to optimize your campaign to give you
Yeah.
people who are more high quality. So, one thing I do want to preface with this part is that the quality of the list matters a lot. It matters a ton because
Yeah.
this is kind of what you're telling Facebook to go do. So I'm here in the audience targeting of my Facebook Ads Manager. I'm going to go to create new. I'm going to go to lookalike audience, and it gives me this. I need to create a source. I need a source to base that lookalike list with. So I'm going to go ahead and do a custom source and walk through the different sources that you can enable. So again, a customer list would be one source, right? You basically just give Facebook a list of your customers' emails, and then you tell Facebook, hey, go look for people with similar characteristics that are not customers, but again, share some commonality to optimize my campaign for. So that's
Yeah.
one way to kind of create a source there. Another way would be using your website. So using the Facebook Pixel, you can tell people, go look for people who are interested in similar things to people who have visited my website. And then I want to go down here. App activity, offline activity, for the most part, you can ignore. But down here, Radu, can you talk about how you could use your videos, right? The content that you're already
Yes.
putting out there on Facebook as a source for Facebook to make that lookalike list with.
Yeah. So imagine you have 10 videos, you run these videos as ads. After a while, you'll know exactly how many people and which of those specific people watched, let's say 10% of all the videos, and maybe 60% or 50% of the entire duration of that specific video. Maybe the
Yes.
first 30 seconds. So maybe in percentage, maybe in seconds. But obviously, those people that watched, if the video is 1 minute long and they watched 40, 50 seconds, that's great. Or if they watched 60, 70% of the video. Comparing that to those people that maybe they watched 3 seconds or 5%. You can then talk with Facebook. Hey, I want these people that watched at least half of the video. Can you create me an audience based on people that are similar to these ones, for example? That would be
Yes.
the big one. Yeah.
I love it. Yes. So essentially, all the videos that you've shared on your Facebook page, you can tell Facebook, hey, use this video as a reference. Give me a list of people who have watched 3 seconds, 50% of the video, 75% of the video. So let's show what that looks like. So I'm going to use the video source here to create my lookalike list. I'm going to click next. And now I can choose the kind of content, right? So the level of engagement. And I think this is what you were talking about, Radu,
Yep.
when it comes to this. And the reason why watch time is so important is because it shows a level of commitment for that person, right? For those group of people, right? So somebody who's only seen at least 30 seconds of your video, that list is going to be huge, right? Because some people just watch the first 30 seconds by default, just kind of scrolling around. So there's not a whole lot of commitment there. But if somebody has watched 50% of a video, depending on the length of that video, right? If it's like at least a minute long, you can tell that something about that video hooked them in, right?
Yeah.
So they watched something, they watched that video for at least 50% of it. So there was something within that video that kind of signaled to them that there's some sort of interest there, right? So it could be one of the best ways that we use this is with our clients who have really good educational video content. Those videos tend to be a little bit longer, between the 2 to 5 minute mark. So now we can tell Facebook only like look for people who are going to watch 50% of videos, right? So now we can tell Facebook that like that will be my lookalike audience, right? I want to only look for other people who kind of fit within the mold of people who have already watched 50% of my video.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and click on 50%, and then it gives you the option up here to select videos. And we have a couple of videos depending on the page that you're going to do. I'm just going to do the detailers growth page. And then we have some videos here. Depending on how many videos you have, like some videos have zero 3-second watch time because Facebook auto cropped it. But let's look for one that has a little bit more watch. So here we have one with 216. Um, let's find one with a lot of watch time. So this one, William clip or Dan's clip, right? So it shows here that at least 3,700 people have seen at least 3 seconds of it. Okay, so I'm going to click on those videos and let me just zoom out here. Can't see my screen. I'm going to confirm that. And now what we're basically telling Facebook is here are the two videos. I want you to give me a list of people who have at least watched 50% of these two videos.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to use to create our lookalike audience. So we're going to do 50% watch time for best performing vids, create audience. Cool. So now that we've created that source, it gives us a couple options. We can create a lookalike audience. We can create an ad based on that audience, or we can create another custom audience. I'm going to go ahead and click on create a lookalike audience. And cool. So now, Radu, can you walk me through your thinking when it comes to selecting the percentage here?
Yep. Yeah. So you see, there's a scale. The further up the scale, the further up you move the scale from on that slider, the broader the audience becomes. So it's 0.0%, 1%, 2%, and obviously the higher you go on that scale, the audience will be broader. That audience won't be as close to the initial interests, characteristics, and all that. But in numbers, it's going to be a bigger audience. So a simple example: 1% of a specific audience might be 700,000, let's say. If you move that up to 10%, it might be 10 million, maybe 15 million, but obviously it's not
Yes.
going to be as concise as close to the original one. So you can create multiple of those. You can then split test those, see exactly how each of those goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to kind of recap what we've talked about so far, right? One of the best ways to improve the quality of your leads is to simply exclude all the areas or zip codes where they're not financially qualified or may not be financially qualified to get their car ceramic coated, right? Because maybe they live in a historically low income zip code. They're just not going to have the disposable income if we're looking at like the broad scheme of things, right? And then the second way to improve lead quality that we're talking about here is through lookalike audiences, right? So one of the most important things to keep in mind when it comes to lookalike audiences is the quality of the source, right? So the data that you're handing over to Facebook and you're telling it to create a lookalike audience of. And then the second thing here would be the percentage, right? So how far do we want to deviate from the source that we gave Facebook? Do we want to deviate by 1%, where we're telling Facebook explicitly to look for people who are within a 1% um, degree of this source that we just gave you, or 10%? So usually the sweet spot tends to be somewhere in the middle. So, right, it's not too broad to where it's deviating by 10%, but it's also not too narrow where it's staying within like a set of bounds. So I'm going to go ahead and click 5% for this example. I'm going to go ahead and create audience. And Facebook is estimating that the total reach across the US will be 14 million people, but that'll get reduced when we add in these kind of targeting options here. So now that I have that lookalike audience created, I can pull from that here, right? So it shows it here in the custom audiences as people who have watched 50% of our best performing videos, for example. And it also combines that with the lookalike audience to kind of expand by a deviation of 5% of people who have watched at least 50%
Yeah.
of the best performing videos. Um, so when it comes to lookalike audiences, this is why lookalike audiences can become so powerful over time, right? Because in the beginning, if you're just starting out your detailing business, your customer list might be less than 50, it might be less than 100. So you don't have a whole lot of data to hand over to Facebook, but imagine if you have over 100 customers in your CRM in a database somewhere, where you can now take those emails, hand them over to Facebook, and tell Facebook, go look for people with similar characteristics, similar attributes to my existing customer list, right? And that's just one example. We could do this with videos, we could do it with lead forms, with your website visitors. But one thing I do want to emphasize here is that the quality of the list matters almost as much as the people that you're looking to target.
Yeah.
Because the quality of the source will determine the quality of the people that Facebook goes out and looks for. So, like if you tell Facebook, here's a list of people who have visited my website, it's not a good source, or it's not a high quality source because those people haven't given you money, they haven't scheduled the time, they haven't put a deposit down. So, like the barrier to entry to visit your website is super low, right? They just click on the domain and they go to your website. But if they haven't given you dollars, they haven't scheduled an appointment, they haven't scheduled a call, they haven't put it down on a deposit, it's hard for Facebook
Yeah.
to give you a high quality audience from that.
Yep.
So to wrap things up here, Radu, are there any sort of other different ways to increase lead quality that you can think of that we might not have touched on here? I think exclusions and lookalike audiences will be the two biggest needle movers, though.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Those would be the main ones. And then as time goes on, after you spend more money on ads, you can start
yes,
retargeting people, and we can talk a lot about that as well. And you can make specific videos just for the people that you retarget. So those people will 100% have seen maybe your face, they know your voice already. So you can just, it's way easier. It's retargeting them with an offer maybe. So that's also a powerful tool to use. Yeah.
yes, retargeting. We should probably talk about that next week. But
Yeah.
retargeting is super helpful if you do it the right way. Now, a lot of people do it the wrong way, where they're showing the same ad to somebody where the level of them, where the chances of them becoming a buyer are super low. So you're basically just spamming somebody who's not interested in getting their car coded with more of your ads, which can turn them off to you. And it can kind of create some frustration there with that person. But if you do it the right way, you could do it in a way where it actually piques their interest, right? Because if you're showing the same ad in the retargeting campaign, you're just bombarding them with the same thing. But if you do it in a way where it's like, hey, John, thank you for submitting your information, right? Maybe you weren't ready or we're just following up. Here's more information that you should know about getting your car coded, right? So now you're
Yeah.
doing it in a way where it's a different approach, right? It's not as aggressive, it's a little bit laid back. It's kind of giving them information to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but to wrap things up here, I want to say that the best way to increase the quality of your ceramic coating campaigns or to get high quality ceramic coating leads is through videos, through educational videos, right? Because targeting options, like let's say one day Facebook just removes your ability to exclude zip codes to, create lookalike lists, you could still get high quality ceramic coating leads using your educational video content.
Yep.
And just to summarize here, when it comes to educational video content, you basically want to walk somebody through your entire process from start to finish in a very easy to understand way. So,
Yeah.
Radu, can you talk about like why educational video content is so important when done right and how it
Yeah.
can help?
So multiple ways it can help. First of all, you let people know exactly what the ceramic coating is, the paint correction, because most of them they're just thinking again that main idea that we circle around that tiny bottle they see, and then why would I pay someone $1,500 just to apply that on the vehicle? So you let them know, hey, it might take up to 8 hours depending on the vehicle. Multiple steps involved. You need someone that has experience. It's great for your vehicle, even if it's brand new. All of those things.
Yes.
So that would be just one example, talking about ceramics and paint corrections. You can then make a video in which you guide them step by step, everything that they can expect if they decide to work with you. So from the moment they call you, the moment that they pick up their vehicle, if they know all those steps, it's way easier to say, okay, I'll do it because everything is familiar. So those would be
Yes.
two examples. But this main idea of the education aspect is just being there, showing your face, people hearing your voice, and then doubling down on all of those things. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, 1000%. So we'll talk more in detail on how to retarget the right way next week. We'll see you there, and I'm looking forward to it. So